The sky was a dull, cloudy gray that morning, and the wind carried a bite that hinted winter was arriving early. Leaves skittered across the sidewalk, rustling like whispers from forgotten places. Ethan Morgan, just 12 years old, tightened the straps of his backpack and tugged his hoodie over his ears as he walked to school. His route always took him past the corner store, an old rusting building with a flickering neon sign and a bell on the door that jingled whenever someone entered. That morning, though, something made him stop. There, beside the dumpster and pressed against the wall as if trying to vanish from sight, was a small cardboard box. It looked soaked at the bottom, possibly from the morning dew or a leaky pipe overhead. From within, a faint whimper curled into the air like a ghost of sorrow. Ethan's heart skipped a beat. He stepped closer, breath catching as he peered inside. A pair of terrified brown eyes met his. A golden retriever puppy, barely bigger than a football, sat curled up on a threadbare towel. Her fur was matted, her ribs just visible beneath her golden coat. She trembled violently, a soft whimper escaping every few seconds. Someone had left her there, alone, frightened, discarded like trash. Ethan knelt down, ignoring the wet pavement, and reached in carefully. "Hey, girl," he whispered, his voice trembling as much as she was. "It's okay. You're okay now." The puppy didn't resist. She barely moved at all, simply looked at him with those impossibly large eyes full of questions and hurt. Ethan wrapped her in his hoodie, feeling how sharply her bones pressed through her fur, and held her close. That's when he noticed the note taped to the side of the box, smudged ink hastily scrawled. "I can't take care of her. Please don't hurt her. Her name is Bella." Bella. The name caught in his throat. Something about it felt right. He stood, cradling her in his arms, and ran the 2 blocks home, school forgotten. His mother, Anna, was already at the kitchen sink, her usual morning routine of coffee and bills spread across the counter. She turned sharply when the door slammed open. "Ethan, why aren't you... What is that?" "A puppy," he gasped, panting. She was left outside the corner store in a box. "Mom, she's freezing." Anna's expression softened, worry flickering behind her eyes. She dried her hands and took a towel from the drawer. "Bring her here." Together they cleaned Bella up. Warm water, gentle soap, soft towels. The puppy barely moved, but her breathing steadied as warmth seeped into her little body. Anna sighed when she felt Bella's ribs. "She's been starving. Poor thing." Ethan looked up, his eyes fierce with quiet determination. "Can we keep her?" Anna hesitated. "Sweetheart, we're already tight on money, and a puppy means food, shots, checkups. She won't be any trouble. I'll take care of her. Please, Mom, just look at her." Bella chose that exact moment to rest her tiny head on Ethan's arm, her eyes fluttering closed with trust that shouldn't have been possible from someone who'd been so hurt. Anna watched, her lips pressed together, then finally nodded. "We'll try, but we have to be smart about it, okay?" Ethan hugged Bella tighter. "I promise I'll take care of her. Always." And he did. For the next year, Ethan and Bella were inseparable. He saved every bit of his lunch money to buy dog food and treats. On weekends, he walked dogs in the neighborhood and did odd chores to help pay for her checkups. He taught her to sit, stay, and fetch, but more than anything, he taught her to feel safe again. Bella blossomed. Her fur grew thick and shiny. Her tail became a blur of golden joy, and her eyes, once clouded with fear, shone with love every time she looked at Ethan. They raced through the fields behind their apartment building, watched movies under a blanket on rainy days, and even built a snow fort together that winter. But life has a cruel way of testing the purest bonds. It started one evening when Bella didn't come bounding to the door as usual. Ethan found her lying on her side in the hallway, breathing hard, her body stiff. Panic surged in his chest as he called her name over and over. She lifted her head weakly, trying to wag her tail, but her body refused to move. Ethan screamed for his mom. At the vet's office, Ethan clung to Bella as they took her in for scans. The fluorescent lights, the cold stethoscope, the sterile silence, it all blurred together. When the doctor returned, his face was grim. Bella has a rare condition. It's called panostitis, and in her case, it's advanced. It affects her bones, causes extreme pain, and eventually leads to mobility issues. We caught it in time, but she needs surgery, and she'll need ongoing physical therapy and specialized care. Ethan nodded eagerly. Okay, we'll do it. Whatever it takes. But then the vet continued. The total cost, with surgery, medication, and rehab, will be around $6,000. The room fell silent. Anna placed a trembling hand on Ethan's shoulder. We don't have that kind of money. Ethan looked at Bella, who lay quietly on the exam table, her eyes still full of trust. We can figure it out. I can do more chores, Ethan, Anna said gently. We've already stretched everything. We can't afford it, not even close. The vet cleared his throat, sympathy heavy in his voice. There is one option. There's a rescue organization in the next town. They specialize in dogs with special needs. If we surrender Bella to them, they can cover the surgery and give her the treatment she needs. Ethan's breath caught in his throat. Give her up? It's not giving her up, the vet said gently. It's giving her a chance to live pain-free. The words felt like razors across his heart. That night, Ethan didn't sleep. He lay next to Bella on the floor, his fingers tangled in her fur. Every time she whimpered in her sleep, a new crack splintered across his chest. The next morning, he held her tighter than ever before. I love you, Bella, he whispered. And I want you to live. Even if it means you have to live without me. He kissed her head and cried into her fur as his mom made the call. The morning Bella was taken away, the house felt quieter than it ever had. Ethan sat on the edge of the couch, cradling her head gently in his lap, staring into her eyes like he was trying to memorize every fleck of color in them. The living room was dimly lit, though the sun had risen an hour ago. He didn't care. Outside, a van from the rescue center was pulling into the driveway, its tires crunching over the gravel like the sound of finality. Bella looked up at him, her breathing slow, her golden fur warm beneath his fingers. He wanted to say so many things, but his throat was choked with tears that refused to fall. She wagged her tail once, softly, gently, as if to say, "It's okay." But it wasn't. Not to Ethan. His mother, Anna, stood silently by the door, her hands trembling as she wiped her eyes with a tissue. She'd never seen her son like this, so completely gutted, not even when his father left. This was different. This wasn't just heartbreak. This was sacrifice. The doorbell rang. Every second Ethan had with Bella felt like it was slipping through his fingers like sand. He wrapped his arms around her neck and buried his face in her fur. "Don't forget me," he whispered. "Please don't forget." The volunteers from the rescue came in quietly, respectful of the moment. One of them, a kind-looking woman, named Grace with silver-streaked hair and soft eyes, knelt beside Ethan. "Hi, sweetheart," she said gently. "I'm Grace. Bella's going to come with us, okay? We're going to take really good care of her. She's going to have the surgery and she'll be with a foster family who will love her like crazy while she gets better." Ethan could barely nod. "She's lucky to have someone who loves her enough to do what's best," Grace added. "Not everyone can do that. You're very brave." Brave. The word felt hollow. If bravery felt like this, like being torn apart from the inside, he didn't want any part of it. He placed one last kiss on Bella's forehead. She whimpered softly and licked his chin, as if she knew. Then with trembling hands, Ethan handed her leash over to Grace. The door closed behind them. Ethan didn't watch the van drive away. He just sat there, his arms wrapped around nothing but air, and cried. The days that followed blurred together like fog. Ethan went through the motions. School, homework, dinner, but it all felt wrong. The house was too still. The silence was too loud. Every room reminded him of her. The living room where she napped in sunbeams. The kitchen corner where her food bowl used to sit. The front door where she used to wait for him after school. Now, there was just absence. He would catch himself listening for her, the jingle of her collar, the soft thump of her tail against the floor, but it never came. Nights were the worst. His bed felt enormous without her curled up at his feet. He left the window cracked open anyway, just in case some part of her spirit was still close by. Anna tried her best. She made his favorite dinners, let him skip chores, even surprised him with a movie night. But nothing reached him. Not really. One night she found him curled up with Bella's old blanket, eyes swollen from crying. She wrapped him in her arms, and for a long time they just sat there in silence. "She's not gone forever," she whispered. "You gave her a chance. One day you'll see her again." "I didn't want to be a hero," Ethan said brokenly. "I just wanted to keep my best friend." Meanwhile, in the next town over, Bella was beginning her road to recovery. The rescue center had taken her in, immediately starting her treatment with pain management and physical therapy. The surgery was scheduled within a week. Grace, who had taken a special interest in her case, visited her every day. She noticed something about Bella, something that tugged at her heart. The dog never barked, never played with toys, and never fully relaxed. She was sweet and cooperative, but always seemed to be waiting. Like she was listening for a voice that never came. Like her heart still lived somewhere else. After surgery, Bella had a long healing process ahead. The first few weeks were hard. She couldn't walk without help, and her appetite was low. But Grace refused to give up. She played soothing music, read to her, and even bought her a stuffed fox that resembled the one Ethan had once bought from a thrift store and tied to Bella's collar for comfort. "She's missing someone," Grace told the rescue director one day. "I think she's grieving just like the boy." And she was. Bella's recovery began to improve. Bit by bit, she regained her strength. Her steps grew steadier. Her tail started to wag again. But the spark, the full light in her eyes, never returned. Grace kept a file with her paperwork, and taped to the inside of the folder was a photograph Ethan's mother had emailed when they completed the surrender forms. Ethan holding Bella in his arms, both of them smiling like the world couldn't touch them. Back in town, Ethan started a journal, something his school counselor recommended to help him work through the grief. At first, it was just short entries. Day 1 without Bella. I hate it. I hate everything. Day 4, I swear I heard her collar jingle. It wasn't real. Day 8, I smelled her blanket today and cried for 2 hours. Day 15, I miss her more, not less. That feels backwards, but over time his entries began to change. They became letters. Dear Bella, I hope you're not scared. I hope they're treating you nice. I wonder if you've had your surgery yet. I bet you were so brave. I miss you so much. Every day I walk past the park, I look for you. I still leave the back gate unlocked in case you somehow come back. Love always, Ethan. He wrote to her every night. One day, Grace, who had been following Bella's progress carefully, reached out to Anna. She wanted to update Ethan. She knew that kind of heartbreak couldn't be left hanging in silence forever. So Anna called Ethan into the living room one evening, holding her phone like it was something fragile. "There's an update on Bella," she said. Ethan sat up straight, heart pounding. "Is she okay? She had the surgery. She's recovering really well. They say she's strong. And there's something else. The woman who's been caring for her, Grace, she said Bella hasn't bonded with anyone else. She's waiting for you, Ethan." Ethan blinked. "What do you mean?" "She thinks Bella remembers you. She said if we're still open to it, there's a chance you two could see each other again." The words hit him like thunder. He didn't dare believe it. His chest felt like it might collapse under the weight of hope returning after so many weeks of sorrow. "Can we go see her?" he asked, voice small and trembling. "We can," Anna said, tears in her eyes. "We're going tomorrow." The next morning, Ethan was up before the sun. His room was still dark, but his heart beat with a nervous, almost electric energy. For weeks, he'd dreamed about Bella. Every night she came to him in flashes, running across the park with her, ears flapping in the wind, curling beside him on the couch, resting her chin on his knee while he did homework. But this morning was different. This time it wasn't a dream. This time he was going to see her again. Anna had packed water bottles, tissues, and the old stuffed fox toy that Ethan had found in Bella's basket the night before she left. He hadn't been able to throw it away. Its fur was worn down and its stitching was coming loose at the tail, but it still smelled faintly of Bella. He clutched it now as they drove toward the rescue center, hands trembling. The closer they got, the more Ethan's mind spun with doubt. What if she doesn't remember me? What if she's scared of me now? What if she's better off without me? He looked over at his mom, who gave him a reassuring smile, her hand gently squeezing his shoulder. No matter what happens, Ethan, you gave her life. That's something no one can ever take away. The rescue center sat just outside of town, nestled behind a line of maple trees. It wasn't large, but it was surrounded by open fields and a warm stillness that seemed to hug the air. As they pulled into the gravel lot, Ethan saw the familiar rescue van parked out front, the same one that had taken Bella away. His breath caught in his throat. Grace was waiting at the front entrance, her silver hair tucked behind her ears, eyes bright with anticipation. She waved them over and knelt to Ethan's level as he stepped out of the car. "She's been doing really well," Grace said softly. "She's gained weight, her leg is healing beautifully, and, well, she's never stopped waiting by the door." Ethan swallowed hard. "Is she in pain?" "Not anymore," Grace smiled. "She's strong, and I think—" She paused, searching his eyes. "I think she's been saving all her strength for this moment." She led them inside, through a quiet hallway with soft lighting and clean walls. The building didn't smell like a typical shelter. It smelled like warm blankets, disinfectant, and hope. With each step, Ethan felt his pulse grow louder in his ears. Finally, they stopped at a room near the back. Grace turned to him. "She's in here. I told her this morning that someone very special was coming. She's been waiting by the window since." Ethan hesitated. His whole body shook, not from fear, but from the overwhelming surge of emotion. Weeks of silence, nights of sobbing into pillows, letters she never read, dreams he didn't want to wake from. And now, this, a door, a heartbeat away. Grace opened the door slowly. The moment Ethan stepped inside, time stopped. There she was, Bella. She sat near the far corner of the room, wrapped in a soft blue blanket, her golden fur glinting in the sunlight streaming through the window. Her ears perked the second the door creaked. She turned her head, and her eyes locked onto Ethan. For a single second, there was stillness. And then, she bolted. Her back leg still moved a bit awkwardly, but she didn't care. She ran like the pain didn't matter, like the world had, come back into focus and barreled straight into Ethan's arms. He dropped to his knees just in time to catch her. "Bella!" he gasped, burying his face into her neck, his fingers sinking into her fur like he never wanted to let go again. She licked his cheeks furiously, whining, crying, her tail wagging like a propeller. She pressed her head into his chest, paws frantically, kneading his shirt as if she couldn't believe he was real. He hugged her tighter, tears pouring down his face. "I missed you so much," he whispered, sobbing. "I thought you'd forget me. I thought—" But Bella didn't forget. She never did. Anna stood at the doorway, hand to her mouth, her own tears slipping silently down her cheeks. Grace gently rested a hand on her back, whispering, they were meant for each other. The reunion stretched on, endless and perfect. Ethan sat on the floor, letting Bella crawl into his lap like a puppy again. He pulled the stuffed fox out of his backpack and held it out. Bella froze when she saw it. She sniffed it gently, then took it in her mouth, lying down beside him with a deep, satisfied sigh, as if for the first time in weeks everything was okay. Later that afternoon, Ethan and Grace sat together while Bella rested at Ethan's feet, curled up like she never wanted to leave his side again. "She never let any of us get close like that," Grace said, shaking her head with a smile. "She was always gentle, always sweet. But it's like she saved the deepest part of her love for you. I didn't think I deserved it, Ethan said quietly. I gave her away. Grace's voice was soft but firm. No, you gave her a future. That's not giving up. That's love, the hardest kind. Anna joined them, kneeling beside Ethan. There's something else, honey. I talked to Grace about this already. Ethan looked up. She told me Bella still needs a few more weeks of recovery, but after that, if we're ready, we can bring her home. Ethan's eyes widened. Home? Anna nodded. Home for good. His heart nearly exploded with joy. Are you serious? I've never been more serious. Ethan wrapped his arms around his mom, then looked down at Bella. Did you hear that, girl? You're coming home. Bella lifted her head, her ears, flicking up at the sound of his voice, her eyes filled with warmth. She leaned forward and rested her paw on his leg, her way of saying, I heard. As the sun began to set, Ethan and his mom prepared to leave. Bella watched him, confused, her body tense with worry. She whined softly, pawing the ground. I'll be back, I promise, Ethan whispered, kissing her head. Only a few more weeks. Then it's forever. Bella watched him until the door closed, still as a statue. And for the first time since she'd arrived at the rescue center, she wagged her tail with hope. The following weeks passed like a dream suspended in time for Ethan. Every day he counted down the minutes. Every night, he stared at the calendar above his desk. Each X he marked on the dates, feeling like a small step closer to something he still couldn't quite believe was real. Bella coming home. Truly home. Not in his imagination, not in his dreams. Not just for a few hours of reunion in a rescue center, but back in his arms, in his bed, in his life. Permanently. Bella stayed at the shelter under Grace's care for 3 more weeks, finishing the last stage of her recovery. Her leg was healing beautifully. She could walk almost normally now, with only a slight limp if she ran too hard. But more than that, her spirit was glowing again. She started eating better. She played with toys again. And most importantly, every time Grace said, "Ethan's coming soon," her ears perked up and her tail thumped softly against the floor. On the morning of the big day, Ethan barely touched his breakfast. His hands were shaking with anticipation. He'd laid out Bella's old blanket on the couch, set her water and food bowls down beside it, and placed her favorite fox toy right in the center like a welcome gift. He even made a little sign and taped it to the front door with a crayon drawing of a dog and the words, "Welcome home, Bella." Anna drove him to the rescue center one final time, but this time the car ride felt different. There wasn't the heavy weight of goodbye pressing against his chest. Instead, there was a warmth blooming inside him, a sense of healing that felt like sunlight cracking through the clouds. When they pulled up, Grace was already waiting outside with Bella on a soft leash. Bella's eyes scanned the parking lot until they landed on Ethan. She didn't bark, she didn't jump or pull, she simply looked. A quiet, soulful gaze that held every memory they'd ever shared. Then, as if something inside her recognized that this was it, that this wasn't just another visit, her tail began to wag. Slowly at first, then wildly. Her legs moved faster than her healing bones liked, but she didn't care. Ethan stepped out of the car, and before his foot even touched the gravel, Bella launched toward him. Grace let the leash slide gently through her hands, trusting in the moment. "Bella!" Ethan cried. She leapt into his arms, licking his face, whining with joy. Ethan dropped to his knees on the gravel, letting her cover him in kisses, laughing through the tears that flooded his eyes. He buried his face in her fur, feeling her heart beating against his like 2 drums finally falling back into rhythm after being apart for far too long. "She's ready," Grace said, watching with misty eyes. Anna nodded, her hand pressed to her chest. After signing the final papers and thanking Grace for everything she'd done, Ethan walked out of the shelter not as a boy who had lost his dog, but as one who had fought to bring her back. Bella sat beside him in the car, not in the back seat but up front, her head resting on his lap. As they drove home, Ethan stroked her ears gently, whispering, "We did it, girl. We made it." Back at home, Bella stepped cautiously into the house, sniffing everything like she was seeing it all for the first time, yet remembering every corner. Her nose lingered on the couch where they used to nap, the rug where she had once rolled belly up during summer afternoons, the base of the staircase where she would wait for Ethan to come down every morning. When she spotted the fox toy, she froze. Then she stepped forward slowly, picked it up with trembling jaws and laid it on her blanket. Then she curled up beside it with a soft sigh, like a soldier who had finally returned from war. Ethan couldn't stop staring. "I still can't believe she's here," he whispered to his mom. "I can," Anna said, placing an arm around his shoulders. "You never gave up on her." That night, Ethan didn't sleep in his bed. Instead, he curled up beside Bella on the living room floor, using a blanket and an old pillow, his hand resting gently on her back as she slept. He listened to the soft rhythm of her breathing, the way her chest rose and fell in peace. No more panic, no more pain, no more wondering if she was okay. She was here. She was home. Over the next week, Bella began to blossom. The limp in her leg faded until it was barely noticeable. She ran again, chasing tennis balls in the backyard, splashing, through puddles, ears flying like wings. Ethan started taking her on walks every morning before school, each step beside her a reminder of what he nearly lost and what he'd fought so hard to save. They visited the park again, the same park where they'd played every day before the accident. At first, Bella approached it cautiously, but when she saw the pond and the familiar benches, she barked with recognition and pulled the leash toward the open grass. There, Ethan knelt beside her, arms around her neck. "Remember this, please?" she answered with a lick to his cheek. He closed his eyes. "I thought we'd never come back here. I thought that day was the end." Bella leaned into him, like she was telling him it was just the beginning. A little girl and her mother passed by, and the girl asked, "Is she yours?" Ethan nodded proudly. "Yeah, she's mine." And for the first time, it didn't hurt to say it. It didn't come with guilt or grief, just joy. One evening, Anna surprised Ethan with a small scrapbook she had made. Inside were pictures of Bella from the day she was brought home as a puppy, photos from birthday parties, park visits, and even some Grace had emailed of Bella during her recovery. On the final page was a quote handwritten in neat cursive. "Sometimes, the greatest acts of love come in the form of letting go and finding your way back again." Ethan hugged his mom tightly, then showed Bella the pictures, flipping each page while she watched with sleepy eyes. "You remember all this?" he whispered. She yawned and rested her chin on his knee. "I do too," he said, voice cracking, "and I'll never forget it. Ever." That night, as Ethan turned out the lights and crawled into bed, Bella hopped up beside him without hesitation. He looked into her soft brown eyes, glowing faintly in the moonlight, and whispered, "Welcome home, Bella. For real this time." She nuzzled against his chest and they drifted into sleep. Together again. The days turned into weeks, and life finally found its rhythm again. For Ethan, it wasn't just a return to normal. It was the beginning of something stronger, more sacred. He had always loved Bella, but now that love carried a different weight, one built not just on joy but on sacrifice, on pain, on the unimaginable decision to let go, and the miracle of getting her back. Their bond had deepened in a way no words could fully describe. There was an unspoken understanding between them. Now every glance Bella gave him carried volumes. "Thank you, I missed you, you saved me." And every time Ethan reached to touch her, it wasn't just affection. It was reassurance, a silent promise. "I'll never let you go again." Each morning before the sun rose, Bella would hop into his bed, pressing her warm body beside his. And every afternoon she'd sit by the window like a statue, watching the driveway until he returned from school. Her tail would start wagging the second she saw him, and she'd bolt to the door like it was her purpose in life to be the first one, to greet him home. One Saturday morning, Ethan and his mom packed a small bag and drove Bella out to the countryside. Grace had invited them to an adoption event she was helping organize, a celebration for families who had adopted dogs from the shelter. Grace had specifically asked Ethan and Bella to attend and share their story, believing it could inspire others. At first, Ethan felt nervous. He didn't see himself as brave or special. He was just a kid who loved his dog. But when he stood up on that little makeshift stage with Bella sitting loyally beside him, the words came naturally. "She was my best friend," Ethan began, his voice soft. "She still is. When she got sick, I didn't have enough money to help her. I'm just a kid, you know? I had to let her go to the shelter because I couldn't watch her suffer, and it was the only way to save her life." The crowd was silent, hanging on to his every word. Bella nudged his leg gently, as if to remind him she was there. "I visited her every week, even though it broke my heart. And I promised her, if she got better, I'd find a way to bring her home. No matter what." He paused, tears catching in his throat. "And now, she's here. She's home. And we're together again." There wasn't a dry eye in the audience. Grace wiped her cheeks, and several families came up afterward just to hug Ethan and pet Bella, calling them both brave, calling their story a miracle. But Ethan just smiled and said, "She's the miracle. I just didn't give up on her." On the drive home, Bella rested her head on Ethan's lap. He stroked her ears in silence, his heart full. The seasons changed, painting their world in soft pastels of spring and golden hues of summer. Bella's fur shone brighter than ever. Her limp, once noticeable, had become barely a shadow. She ran freely again, fast and full of joy, chasing butterflies across fields and catching falling leaves midair. But even with time healing her body, Ethan never forgot the pain they'd both endured, and because of that, he cherished every single moment with her. He took hundreds of photos, some silly, some serious, and made it a point to write about her in a small journal he kept under his pillow. One night, during a school writing assignment, titled "What Means the Most to You?", Ethan chose to write about Bella. He wrote about the first time he held her as a puppy, about their backyard adventures, about the vet visit that changed everything, and the heart-wrenching day he walked away from her for what he thought was forever. He wrote about the guilt, the sadness, the hope. And he ended it with a sentence that made even his teacher cry. "Love means doing what hurts if it saves the one you love, and holding on to hope until the day you get them back." The story was published in the local newspaper after the school submitted it for a student writing contest. People all over town began recognizing Ethan and Bella at the park, waving or stopping to say how much their story had touched them. Some even donated to the rescue center in Bella's name. Ethan didn't want fame. He didn't want attention. He just wanted the world to know that dogs weren't just dogs. They were family. They were hearts wrapped in fur. One evening, after a long walk, Ethan sat with Bella on the porch as the sun dipped behind the hills. The sky was a canvas of orange and lavender, and the cool breeze ruffled Bella's fur as she lay beside him, head on his lap. "Do you remember that day?" he whispered. "The day I left you at the shelter?" Bella looked up at him with those wise, soulful eyes, and Ethan swore she understood every word. "I'll never forget it," he said, voice cracking. "And I promise I'll never leave you again." She pressed her nose to his hand, a soft huff escaping her lips. They sat like that for a long time, boy and dog, survivor and survivor, broken hearts stitched back together. As the stars began to appear, Anna stepped out with 2 mugs of hot cocoa and placed one beside Ethan. "She's lucky to have you," she said, sitting on the steps. "No," Ethan whispered, smiling at Bella. "I'm lucky to have her." Years later, long after Bella had gone gray around her muzzle and began walking a bit slower, Ethan would still tell her story. At school, at rescue events, in college essays, in blog posts. He wrote about her the way some write about first loves or childhood dreams, because to him, Bella had been all of that, and more. When Bella finally passed away in her sleep many years later, curled up beside Ethan in bed like always, he didn't cry right away. He simply held her, whispering, "Thank you." Over and over. Thank you for fighting. Thank you for waiting. Thank you for loving me. Thank you for coming back. And when he finally did cry, it wasn't just grief. It was gratitude. Because in a world that often breaks hearts without warning, Ethan and Bella had been given a second chance, a reunion most never get. They'd loved fiercely, lost deeply, and found their way back to each other against all odds. On Bella's grave in the garden, Ethan placed the same fox toy she had once laid on her blanket after coming home. And on the small stone marker, he carved the words, "Forever and always, my best friend."